Hello, welcome to Media Queen TV. This is our 2026 series, episode 3. And today we're going to chat about connect, relate, communicate, about empowering our youth. And we have an absolute expert on this topic with us today. A little bit about our guest, firstly. Now, our guest today is from South Australia. She is a former elite athlete and elite coach in combat sports. She's a psychologist and she is the founder of Counterpunch, which is extraordinary. You're going to hear all about that today. And she is on a mission to redefine our approach to youth development. Welcome, Mercedas Taaffe-Cooper. Great to have you with us.
Hey, Olin. Lovely to be here. Thank you for the chat.
Thank you so much for coming. And a lot of people call you Merc. They're probably wondering how to
pronounce
it.
Yeah, because nobody really pronounces Mercedes. They like to pronounce it like the car. And I think it's just easier to say Merc because that's what I've been known for all my life. Just one little correction, if you like. I am based a proud resident of South Australia. I'm actually a joint citizen, obviously, of Australia, but I am born and raised in Ireland. I moved here when I was like 42 years of age. So I've still got another bit of living to have the same amount of time living here in Australia, but I certainly love it here. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So that is not a South Australian accent. That is an Irish accent that you're hearing there.
No, I'm not sure what a South Australian accent is, to be honest, because I know in Ireland, every county has an individual accent, but I've lived in a few states in Australia, and to be honest, I'd struggle to tell the difference, apart from the odd phrase maybe, but not really in the accent.
Yes, well, there's parts of South Australia, I've definitely heard some different kind of like sounds a little bit different. It's almost like South Australia is like a big country town, or Adelaide, you know, it's kind of, it is definitely different.
Oh, it's definitely the best state in Australia, no doubt. That and Tasmania, close second, but yeah.
Yeah. Love Adelaide. I actually won a table tennis championship, Australian table tennis championships, with a lady from Port Pirie called Kathy Gould, who's we're actually still connected on social media, and she had quite a different kind of accent. I remember, and we were only like 15. We won the under 15 or under 17 girls doubles championships at the time, and we were great friends. And I always love people from South Australia, and also in the speaker community, there's some fantastic people. I find South Australian people are very grounded, down to earth, awesome people. And
my kind of people.
yeah, they're fantastic. They say it's full of churches and bikies in South Australia.
Well, I'm not so sure about. There's certainly lots of churches. I'm live next door to one, but I'm not sure about the latter one though. I haven't really noticed that particularly, but definitely lots of churches.
Yeah, well, there used to be a lot of bikies. Maybe not so much anymore, but I know there used to be, or maybe they're sort of hidden away in the back skirts. But if you're not noticing them, that's probably a great thing. So let's talk about being an elite athlete and elite coach. Now, how did you get into being an elite athlete? Where did all that start for you?
I guess I've always been interested in sport. I was a total tomboy growing up. I had all boyfriends, and I had 4 brothers. So obviously that was my upbringing, and played soccer, played Gaelic football, did all those sports. And then when I was like 16, 17, I discovered martial arts and never looked back. I mean, it was around the time of Bruce Lee on the television and stuff like that. So it was, it was a journey that certainly led me to some fantastic places. So I started with traditional karate, Wateroo. I used to train with a guy called Gary Salter and Mike Clancy, and I used to have to hitch about 5 miles from where I lived to get to the classes, but absolutely loved them. And then I sort of transitioned more into kickboxing, which is more of a freestyle, not quite so rigid as karate. I really enjoyed the sort of light contact and the full contact sparring. I had a coach called Michael McDermott then, had worked with Michael for many years, and gradually transitioned then into, competing and so forth, and managed to do quite well. I won a European title and a world title in kickboxing in WACO, and then transitioned into coaching, but I never was much of a kicker. I couldn't kick save my life, if I'm honest. I used to get in the ring and throw the 8 kicks that were compulsory. proceed to box. But unfortunately, I was just that wee bit too old for when boxing took off, when Katie Taylor became, the champion that she is. I was like 35, so I missed out on the very first amateur world female championships by 6 months. Um, Obviously, the age is now 40, but back then it was 35, and then I had a second sort of lease of life when I moved to Australia because we had masters boxing here, and I actually went and represented Australia at the World Masters boxing in Gleason's Gym in New York back in 2014, 15. And we had a crew went out there and we did really, really well. I still have my little um, handmade mini belt from Gleason's Gym. But yeah, it was awesome. It was really, really fun. But yeah, coaching and teaching has been my thing for many years, for 43 years coaching now. So
Wow.
yeah, then I guess that was combining that. I kind of was lucky enough to meet a guy called Nicholas Cruz, who is a Cuban coach who coached the first gold and silver medalist that we had in Ireland was back in '92 at the Olympics when Michael Cruz and Wayne McCullough won gold and silver, and Nicholas was in the corner. And after that, he did a series of workshops around Ireland, which I was lucky enough to go and attend. And he sort of introduced me to the science of boxing, if you like. And from there, I went on to do a degree in psychology and a degree in sports and exercise science. And then did a master's in sports science, but I started a PhD. And then I had a bit of an epiphany in the middle of that, which led to moving to Australia and then finishing my clinical master's in Tasmania, of all places. But it basically, the martial arts and the sports science, the psychology, all of that have coaching, the 43 years, all of that have contributed to what is now the Counterpunch program.
Wow, extraordinary. Now, so obviously you know about discipline. Because to be an elite athlete, you have to be very disciplined. I'm really curious what your training regime was like when you were in that state.
To be honest, probably wasn't as good as it would have been with the knowledge that I have now.
Right.
It was very much like 70-80% of it was by yourself. So yes, there was discipline involved, and it was hard because you're training by yourself. But then I was training like 3-4 nights a week with Michael and the crew, so I had that connection. And I started traveling twice a week to Dublin on a bus for 4 hours each way, hung around for 2 hours for 1 hour's training with what was a head coach in Dublin, which was a 4-hour bus ride away. I used to come back from there, jump on a Honda 50 motorcycle, which is like a moped basically, ride 7 miles, train at my own, like with Michael at the club, and then ride 12 miles back home, got home about 11 o'clock. Yeah, that was my day. Up at 6 to ride to catch the bus 5 miles away, 4 hours on a bus, an hour's training, 2 hours hanging around, 4 more hours back, ride my moped to train, another 90 minutes training, then ride another 40 minutes home on the bike, and go to bed. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was discipline, but at the time you didn't really think about it that way because you were just passionate about learning it, I guess the biggest regret is I never really stopped to be in the present. I was always going for the next thing and never actually enjoyed the achievements in that moment in time, which is, all of that learning is part of the motivation for me creating Counterpunch, because I just want people that went through my journey, if you like, as teenagers, to actually have the information as teenagers that I managed to learn over 60 years.
Fascinating. And we'll talk about Counterpunch in just a moment. I am curious, though, as a combat sport and with all the training that you did, was there any, serious injuries that you had over time, or, anything you had to overcome there physically?
No, actually, not really. I guess the worst was a training injury once, where a guy called Aidan McSharry, his daughter Mona is actually an Olympic swimmer now. She's college champion in America, but he did.
Wow.
He used to be able to throw a leg like I'd throw a punch. He was just so flexible and athletic. He did a spin back roundhouse kick once and sort of put my buck tooth through my lip. But to be honest, that was as serious as it got. I was very, very fortunate. Didn't really have a consciousness around injuries until I became a master's, and then I sort of had to recognize, the limitations of my body, if you like. But no, I
Mm.
was very fortunate, really. I never really seen any major bad injuries in combat sport in my time competing.
Amazing, amazing. And actually, I must say, my years as a elite table tennis player as well, I was top junior player, represented Australia for 6 years. The worst injury I got was like an RSI in my wrist from all the table tennis, playing. So that was sort of the worst I got. And I did used to belt the hell out of the ball, so I did leave a few red marks on people. But generally speaking, table tennis is a pretty safe sport. Combat sports, so that's fantastic that you didn't have any injuries there, and obviously you're very conscious of that with what you do with counterpunch. So let's segue into what is counterpunch and what makes it so unique.
So as I said, basically counterpunch is everything that I've learned over 43 years of coaching sort of combined, I guess, with the view of teaching the information that I wished I'd had when I was a teenager. And it's not about high performance in sport, it's more about performance in life. It uses combat sports movement, particularly boxing, because it just happens to be my passion. And from a very biased point of view, I'd say that boxing is the most impactful sport there is. And using the movements from that to teach a series of tools, like it's literally a toolbox for life, if you like, combining the benefits of martial arts and boxing and what I've learned there, but mainly like the psychology, the sport science, the choice theory, because that was my chosen methodology, if you like, in terms of therapeutic tools. So I use a lot of choice theory, reality therapy, which is William Glasser's something that he added to the world. I've always really liked the fact that it's very much about what we can do and very much about in the present. But I guess the easiest way to explain it would be give you the story of kind of how it ended up becoming what it is now. So when I came back to Australia, I mentioned when I moved to Australia, I had a number of options, and I ended up doing a clinical master's in UTAS in Hobart, University of Tasmania. At the time, like I've always been interested more in behavioral psychology, but to get my full registration, clinical was the only option that gave me a national qualification, because I knew I was moving. I'd met my husband and I was actually moving to Darwin. That was the intention. So, although it wasn't the intention, I guess, when I first started, because I was at uni when we met, but the doing the clinical masters involved doing a dissertation, like a thesis. So I ended up doing a study in a local school with fifth and sixth graders, which is like 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And it was really interesting because it was about sort of reality therapy, choice theory, and using some of the tools that still form a part of counterpunch. But we introduced a physical component. We were actually in a classroom, so we didn't have a whole lot of space. So I used to just get the kids to stand up behind their desk and do the old martial arts thing, with the hands here, and then yelling out as they punch, and then just going, kill, like as loud as they could, and wake up the classroom next door and so forth. And then when we did the feedback, that was one of the most impactful parts of it, was that physical component. So I realized then that the physical component, well, to be honest, I realized it well before that, because when I was in Ireland, I worked as a school counselor. So I used to go into schools working with kids, and let's be honest, the teachers usually sent the kid that they wanted to get rid of out of the classroom, like the one that was causing the most hassle for them. So I was in this, like, basically under a stairs in a music storage room. So it was a very inviting environment for any kid, and they used to come in and this, oh, the teacher sent me to you. And I was like, yeah, like you're not going to get any conversation, any talk. They're just like completely reticent to have any conversations. So I remember this one particular young fella, let's call him Paddy. He come up out of the woodwork room. I'd heard the teacher yelling at him before he ever came to my supposedly office. But he was kind of half in uniform. Like he had the the school shirt with the tail out. He was wearing jeans, so he kind of half uniform. But Inside the shirt, I noticed he had like a Barcelona soccer jersey. So that was a point of conversation because I was actually quite interested in soccer. And I think Liverpool had played Barcelona in the European Champions League or something the night before. So it provided a little bit of food for conversation. So I did get 2 or 3 words out of him. And then, like, after quite a few experiences like this with quite a lot of kids, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Kids don't want to sit and talk to me like this, especially in this bloody room. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring a set of focus pads. And I'm going to bring a set of gloves, and I'm just going to get them punching the gloves. It's the worst case scenario. They have fun punching the gloves, and I do some pads with them. You know what I mean? And the impact that had was phenomenal. Like, the kids were just, they were like, first of all, you mean it's okay for me to punch something? I was like, yeah, because you're like, you're wearing a glove, you punch the pad. And what it did, like, it actually completely broke down all the barriers and put us on the same playing field, on the same level. So immediately all those defensive body language, everything broke down, and we were able to just have a conversation while we're doing the pads, not instead of or as well as, but just during the pads, we were able to have a chat. So literally the concept that, which I always knew, but that was the concept that I developed with Counterpunch, like the idea of getting into your body and doing something that's enjoyable, movement based, shocks the nervous system, takes them out of their head into their body, and gets them just basically getting them connecting, like communicating. So you were able to break down those barriers in one session that would like take a sit down psychologist years to do, like not years, but weeks, if at all. And having worked in private practice later, I just know it doesn't work. Like, young people don't want to sit and talk to you, especially boys. It's just not their environment. It's not what they want to do. They don't trust you enough. They feel defensive. They're just not going to be themselves, you know? That's why Counterpunch is in the gym. It's in a gym environment. It's a group-based program because they love being with peers. Like, at that age, peers are the most influential people. So they're the people they're going to listen to the most, which is why we have a mentor program. So our graduates actually become mentors as well, which, you know, it's just massive. So the movement and the mentoring and then the mindset, I guess, are the 3 key components. And then the phases are literally that behavioral connection, playing games, doing that stuff. And then we look at, like, how can we regulate our emotions? And then we look at actually, you know, redefining and changing our identity as an outcome of that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And, you know, no matter how much work we do on ourselves, I must say, you know, there's times we all have moments where we feel down. Right. And movement is one of the best ways to shift out of feeling depressed or feeling a low energy. And, you know, I just shared on my socials yesterday, I had a complete nervous breakdown yesterday. And it's interesting the number of people that came to me afterwards and said, I've also been feeling this really heavy energy. And one of the ways I moved out of it was actually grounding myself on the sand and going for a walk and then getting into the ocean. You know, actually movement is incredibly powerful. And of course, when you're sweating, when you're, you know, you're out, you're in the combat sports, or you're doing counterpunch, you know, you're actually sweating it out as well. So it's very, very powerful on multiple levels. And I think for youth particularly, you know, we're in a country that has one of the highest youth suicide rates, you know, around the world. There's some serious, you know, mental health issues, not just for adults, but of course it flows down to the children. And, you know, I know growing
Actually,
up as
sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, it's not so much, it's like the idea of Counterpunch is that early intervention, because what we do is if we give the kids the tools to problem solve, then it doesn't become that sort of victim mentality when they get a bit older. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just that idea of getting in early, because the whole reason, one of the reasons psychology doesn't work is that by the time they come to see you, they're already potentially in you know, in diagnosis kind of level. Whereas a lot of it, one of my favorite things to say is, it's not bloody rocket science. It's just information. You know, if we just give them the information early enough. And what I absolutely love about working with young people is that they're open to the information. They love it. They still have the ability to tap into their imagination and to actually dream and realize that, there are these possibilities. Whereas having worked in the field with like adults in their 40s, 50s, whatever, we're very ingrained in our victimhood by that stage. We've spent a lot of time practicing it. There's a lot of subconscious conditioning and stories there that take a long time to break through. Whereas with the kids, it's like it's
Mm.
just so like it's brilliant. Like, I learn more from the kids every session than they learn from me, because they're just full of wisdom, you know what I mean? But we just need to let them know that, to keep tapping into that, not sort of like try to knock it out of them, which is kind of what the system does, if we're honest.
Yeah, I think that's extraordinary. So what age do you start with the kids?
We got kids from 9, 10. I mean, you could do earlier, like a pre in terms of the movement and stuff, but just getting to a little bit of concrete, out of concrete into abstract thinking, at that stage of development is kind of like the ideal. Like 9, 10, they're just transitioning from that concrete to abstract thinking, and more open to the idea of when you're storytelling and stuff like that. They're sort of getting that a bit by then. We started with like 12, 13, and we still kind of like 12 to 16, I guess, would be our biggest age group. But I'm finding like my favorite cohort at the minute is the young fellow, like the 9, 10, 11-year-olds. Like, they're awesome.
And are there many women that do, or many girls that are being
Oh,
trained
look,
as well?
absolutely. We have a number of facilitators that work with girls as well. We have schools that have girls groups. Just for me personally, like, the program works for both cohorts. But for me personally, as I mentioned earlier, my sort of, I don't know, my genius zone, if you like, seems to be with young lads. Like, that's just what I seem to work with best myself. And being a physical contact based, it's not contact for counterpunch, but boxing in general, like, percentage wise, would probably appeal a lot more to boys than girls. But I definitely know there's heaps and heaps of girls that it appeals to too. And girls are very, very sporty now, and it'll
Mm,
work just as well for them. And we are currently, going to be putting out applications for potential community leaders and facilitators, and females. 100%. We want you. Definitely.
fantastic. Well, that is
Mm.
absolutely brilliant. And, I know, like, my teenagers were very, very challenging because I was bullied as a kid. I never felt I belonged. I never, I actually didn't want to be here for a long time. And thankfully, I've moved through that. Thankfully, I've done a lot of work on myself, and I'm not in that space now, although I still have occasionally some down days like I did yesterday. But today I feel a lot better.
You're human. You're human. Like, we all have down days, but it's just how we handle it. It's like, was it the
Yeah.
Rocky movie? It's not about how often you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get up again.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
And if you think about, babies that come into toddler stage, like, how many times would a baby fall over before it starts to walk? Like, it's probably hundreds or
It
thousands of
doesn't
times.
it doesn't revert to giving up. It doesn't go, "Oh, I'm not gonna be able to walk, so I'll
Yeah,
stop. I won't even try anymore."
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what's really crazy. That's why I'm, like, really passionate about counterpunch, is because only yesterday we did, or maybe last week, we did, a lot of kids won't even try because they're afraid they might fail. And, like,
mm,
that's a conditioning. That's something they've learned since they've been here, because when they were learning to walk, they didn't not want to try. They kept trying until they actually could walk. So it just
yes.
give you a really good, clear example of what subconscious conditioning can actually do. And,
Mm,
and we just need to change that. We need to change that. We can't teach and develop kids through discipline and control, and this is how it is. It's got to be through teaching them how they can regulate their own emotions and create their own reality.
yes, love that. And it is incredibly unique. It really is your own, formulated system that you've put together with this. And the topic today around connect, relate, communicate. I think this is so important, particularly in the AI world. And interestingly,
Mm.
now it's up to the age of 16, they've banned them on social media now, which is very interesting as well. So
Yeah,
what are your
it's not working. I mean,
well,
I'm quite honest with you. Like, there's heaps of my kids that are on social media, and they're under 16. It's just,
right.
well, you see, the other thing about that is that it's fine to say like it's not healthy, and I agree to an extent, but for a lot of kids now, that's how they connect. That's how they connect with their friends. That's how they know what's going on. Okay, ideally we want them to go meet each other in person and stuff, but it's very, I've seen that it can be quite disconnecting as well. It's quite a sudden thing, like, oh, I can't just message my I mean, it can SMS, but kids don't do SMS. It's just what they're conditioned for.
Mm.
So that connection and that group mentality, like imagine during COVID, for example, if you didn't have social media, what would that have been like for the kids? And, I'm not arguing necessarily for it without restriction. I understand, but like just a blanket, no under 16s can use it. Not sure that's the answer either.
Yes, yes. Well, I know there's a lot of under 16s very upset with that. And of course, where there's a will, there's a way. There's always, it's kind of like, kids weren't meant to get alcohol until the age of 18, but they always found a way, didn't they? They really want
And
that
that's the
out.
thing, though. If you make it to scarcity, they're just going to want it more,
Yes, true, true, absolutely. Yes, 100%. So a standard counterpunch session. So what do you sort of go through with, like, how does it look? Because I'm sort of trying to visualize what this
Sure,
counterpunch.
sure. Basically, as I mentioned, it's in the gym. So we have a matted area. In our case, we've got a ring, so the kids are in the ring. It's a big ring, 25-meter square. Groups vary, but I don't recommend more than 10. So we've up to 10. We sometimes have like mentor, well, not sometimes, always have mentors. So for us, we tend to have some kids that might be needing a little bit more support. So it might be a smaller group, and we'd have one-to-one matched up with mentors. But the overview of the program, first of all, just to know, you go through it more than once. Because when you go through it as 11-year-old and then you go through it as 14-year-old, you just get completely different things from it. Like every time I run a training, I'm getting different things from it myself. So it's one of those things that you can just keep digging deeper and deeper. But it's sort of each rollout is like 24 weeks, roughly 20 to 24 weeks. So a semester and a half, like, so basically maybe 2.5 terms. And it's phases. So the first phase, the connecting phase, if you like, is just all about physical games, like just learning, warming up, learning how to do the, mobility, learning some coordination exercises, playing lots of games where you identify specific characters, like who's the leader, who's standing back, who's got real physical sort of capacity and who's maybe struggling a wee bit. One of the examples that I kind of refer to a lot is, we talk about kids with a diagnosis of ADHD. And then we play a game called Last Person Standing. And quite often it's the kid that supposedly has ADHD that wins the game, which requires a lot of focus and following instruction and being able to react. So potentially, I think a lot of ADHD is probably a little bit overdiagnosed, because really it's more about what's in their value world and what they choose to focus on, rather than always just what they're able to focus on. I'm not saying there aren't cases. I'm just saying that it's overdiagnosed. But then the next phase, if you like, once the kids know each other, once they sort of are familiar and they see the environment as being a safe place just to be themselves, and have like role models that they can ask questions of and stuff like that, as in the mentors, we then go into a little bit more tools. So the first thing we do is just looking at a goal setting, looking at a basic thing like, increasing one of the physical components of fitness. So we might just start with push-ups, because for a number of reasons. Number one, we want them to start building consistent habits, morning practices, things that get them out of their head, get them starting the day in the best way possible. And number two, they're going to have a target of something to aim for, to get fitter, to be able to increase their, 1 minute max rep of, say, push-ups or whatever it is. We have an event that we do annually as well called Battle in the Hills. So eventually, maybe within a year or 2 years, whatever they choose, they might want to jump in and have a crack in the ring, where they get matched up either for an exhibition or a matched competitive bout, which is a big analogy for life and stepping outside your comfort zone. And we have a club attached to the program as well, which is not for profit. So the kids can continue to be a part of the group and see the people that they met, and basically continue to come even if they're not actually doing counterpunch. But even in the club, we're always doing counterpunch, even subliminally, if you like. So we teach, when we look at goal setting, we look at things about if they don't do the goal, mostly it's because they haven't linked it to a high enough value. So we sort of establish the values, like we establish what their values are. We look at things like choice, but true choice. Like, are you choosing because that's what dad would want you to do, or are you choosing it simply because you'd love to do that? And just getting that awareness and having those discussions and layering them can be very, very sort of growth oriented for the kids, realizing that actually they're the boss of them and they can do whatever they choose to do, but they also have to own the consequences of those choices, and what they choose not to do or choose to do, it's up to them. But giving them back the power, like, it's very, very empowering when you do that. So we look at things like, as I said, we use an acronym, very SMART, which is like value, emotional regulation, identity, and then specific, measurable, achievable, recorded, time-based. So it's quite a mouthful, but it takes, you could spend a whole phase just going through the different elements of that, and you keep layering it throughout the program. It's not something that we just do in phase one. As we sort of transition into phase two, I guess one of the biggest tools is one that we call increase the gap. So it's basically how to switch from external to internal control, how we can literally extend the gap enough to transition from cortisol to dopamine. Tools like dropping down to do push-ups to be able to do that, because you just do that in the moment. We try to sort of teach the parents a little bit about how kids communicate. Like, for example, most young people don't hear what you're saying, like the words. The first thing they're going to notice is both your tone of voice and your body language before ever they'll hear the words. Words only account for maybe 70% of the communication. We help parents and kids to understand that the reason that why they're feeling big emotions, and the fact that they're not connecting them to reasons, literally because the frontal cortex is not, connecting to the right location when they have a blow up or whatever. And for parents to understand that that's as scary for them as it is for the parent. Why they lash out at the parent more is because, literally they feel safest to do that. Why it's not the best idea to, have a conversation with them straight after school, because their head's about to blow off and they've had so many things to process. The last thing they want to do is try to articulate a conversation, and they just need to decompress. So when they go to their room to play a game on them, even ideally they go out and jump on a trampoline and go for a bike ride. But even if they go to the room and just strum on a guitar or play an online game, it's not about you. They're not like, I'm not going to talk to mom. It's just, they just don't want to talk to anybody. They just need to decompress. So we do lots of tools. And then the final phase, we kind of come into like how to change their identity. We look at how they're meeting their needs. What are the needs? What is total behavior? And then just setting, ongoing setting goals, things like how to raise the vibe, like to increase frequency with like being aware of the things that they're grateful for, like simply just having gratitude lists and things like that. So honestly, Aldwyn, there's so much to it. I could be here for months telling you everything, because every time I do it, something else comes up and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. But it's just one of those, it's like an onion. You just keep peeling and peeling and peeling. And so much comes out of it, But we do put reels up. We've just recently started putting reels up on social media with little clips of our conversations, because, I've had parents come to me and say, what is the magic that happens in there? And I'm like, well, it's kind of hard to explain because I don't let the parents aren't allowed in. This is a kids only zone, apart from obviously myself and my offsider, but it's like just so they get an insight, and it's, again, I keep saying, it's not rocket science. It's just information. It's like a combination of creating the right environment in the right company with the right tools. I think it was it Tony, what do you call him? Tony Robbins, who said like the reason like when he does his workshops and that, it's about immersing people in that higher vibe where they just can't help but raise their vibration, if that's the word. I
Mm.
guess with us, like the kids come once a week, some come twice a week, you know, the boxers come 3 or 4 times a week, the mentors, then they're, you know, they're getting that vibe all the time. So they're constantly getting that feedback. They're constantly, you know, um, trying to get themselves outside their comfort zone, which is where all the magic happens. They're not allowed to not try. They also learn that, you know, failing is not failing. Failing is just feedback. But if you don't fail, you don't have the opportunity to get to the next level. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a lot of the learnings, you know, been around a while now. So there's a lot of things you pick up over time and a lot of things the kids teach me over time that we just feed back to each other. And it just works, you know, it really does work. But I've become more and more aware that I don't want to be the bottleneck for this. You know, we've got facilitators now in Victoria and we've got a few in South Australia, but it really is time for us to get it out there. And for the last 8 months, we've actually been putting our facilitator training into an online format, which has kind of had more and more layers. It's actually Counterpunch 2.0 now, not Counterpunch Foundations. Um, and we're looking forward to sort of launching that and inviting applicants because we need, I guess, community leaders. Like there's so many people out there, so many awesome people who work with young people who see that what they're doing is not enough. The system doesn't work. We're approaching it the wrong way. The medical model, the education system, a lot of it doesn't work, and it's through no fault at all of the actual people who are in it. But
Mm.
there's some of those people are really seeking something that, you know, gets the kids what they actually need. And if that's you, if that's something that calls out to you, then this is for you. This is something that is for you, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I love how comprehensive that is. There's so much to that. It's, you know, it really is a very unique program, and it would be amazing to see it right across Australia. Do you have visions of it going all over the world as well?
Global, 100%. This is a global. This is something I want every kid in the world to be able to access. You know, it
Mm.
sounds like a big dream, but I don't see why it's not feasible. I've
Mm.
already, you know, um, have already presented on Counterpunch in Ireland and America and UK. So it's not an if, it's a when.
Love it.
Mm.
Love it. And as they say, it takes a lifetime to be an overnight success. So, you know, you've been working on this for a long time, and it sounds amazing what you do. And you've had some people in your community for many years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Like literally when the kids do the program, as I mentioned, it's layered, so they can just keep doing it. They can keep repeating it. And each time they're just getting more and more. And depending where they're at, as I mentioned, we do work a little bit with kids that might be just have a different genius zone and have a different way of learning. So we try to cater for that. And for some reason, well, not for some reason, but that's sort of been one of our biggest success stories is our outcomes with some of our kids that might be on the spectrum and that sort of thing as well. But I would sort of reiterate that this isn't a program for any sort of like in need or at risk or anything like that. It's an early educational program for all adolescents that are just struggling with the normal trials and tribulations of adolescence. I think one parent described it as basically teaching their child some, you know, the things that they as parent couldn't teach them. So literally we're like a support system for the parents, you know, because parents are under so much pressure now. You know, they're working, both parents are working. It's, you know, it's tough. It's tough in today's environment. So, you know, they don't want to wait to a point where, oh, my kid might actually need to see a psychologist. Like it's more like, well, let's just give them the tools now so that I'm number one, I'm happy that he's in a safe place. Number two, that he or she's got really positive role models that will give them good information, and they have a purpose and goal, and they're learning useful life skills, potentially skills that they might not be getting in school. And everybody's happy. It's like it's a win-win. But I do have one, when you mentioned that, I do have one client of mine. Yeah, He started with me. He was supposedly level 2 on the spectrum. He started me when he was only 10 and a half years old. Initially, his dad had to stay with him and stuff because he might have had meltdowns and that. But that young man has absolutely thrived, so much so that he hasn't really been working with NDIS or getting any funding. Like, he's kind of said, I've got everything I need. He's just graduated year 12 with honors. He's got his place in university. He's driving a car. He's flying. He was our sole representative at state titles. He's just an awesome young man. He's fit. He's healthy. Yeah, he's just one of the stories. Like, most of our mentors have been with him. My offsider is now 21. He started with me when he was 14. So he's actually, he's graduated counterpunch, gone through the levels, become a mentor, senior mentor, a junior facilitator. I had to sort of invent levels for him because he just kept coming and coming, and he's just a really, he's basically the future of counterpunch, literally. So, and he's now a facilitator, our youngest ever facilitator, and the first of many.
Extraordinary. I love that. And how interesting. I was actually diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago, and I'm actually surprised how many entrepreneurs are ADHD, or some are undiagnosed, some diagnosed. Now, I don't take any medication. However, I would say that growing up as an elite table tennis player and getting into sports at a young age really helped me to channel that energy. Because the thing is about ADHD is that, yes, we can be scattered, but we can also be hyper focused, right? And I think it's channeling
superpower. Absolutely. It's a superpower. It's like, it's why so many kids struggle at school, because school, excuse me, I just take a quick drink.
Sure.
But school is a system that works for maybe 50-60% of the kids. Probably bigger proportion of it works for girls than boys. I mean, the idea of just sitting still for 70 minutes, and I think it's longer now since COVID, like, it's just an anathema to most boys, like, to ask them to sit still. It's just not a natural state for any young man. Or, if you talk about me, I definitely can't sit still for that long. So it's about tapping into the superpower and giving the information in such a way that they can utilize that super. Like, I mean, that young man that I mentioned, like, his superpower was hyper focus. So he chose to hyper focus on boxing and getting fit. He became super fit. And as a coach, I never had to worry about him making weight because he was on it. Like, he was 100% on it. He became the perfect athlete for any coach, because you didn't have to chase him up. You just give him the information. This is what we need to do. And he was on it, like, absolutely obsessive. If anything, you had to pull him back and tell him not to train so hard, So in that regard, it's like about matching the superpower with the purpose, so that they can get that same intrinsic satisfaction.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting now because we're all too quick to label people. Oh, you're this or you're that or whatever. And it's like, well, we're individuals, we're human beings, we're spiritual beings having this human experience, and it's whatever's going to work for you. However, what we do know is that movement is so incredibly powerful, and when you put the movement and the mindset together, and you've created something extraordinary here by the sound of it. And it's just now, okay, let's get this out on a global scale, and that's going to involve having more of the facilitators come on board. So for those who are out there thinking, okay, I'm into health, I want to help youth, what kind of people are you looking for? Who would be ideal to come on board as a facilitator?
So look, it's not for everybody. Like, it's not for anybody who just thinks, oh, I want to follow a script, have a specific syllabus that I just learn off, and then make lots of money from it. Because to be sustainable, I think the biggest challenge has always been that all of these programs that are supposedly for youth are funding based. So they never really have a long-term plan because it's all depending on the next piece of funding. So I think, first of all, for it to work, we need people who want to do it as a living, want to look at it as, this is something that I provide a really valuable service and I deserve to get recompense in kind. because then I know that I've got the capacity to be there and have that service on the long term, which is kind of what we want. We want an ongoing safe place for those kids. So people that are willing to think of this as something that can be a living for them, not necessarily like, oh, straight away I'm going to make a living out of this, but it could be like transitioning gradually from a current job to ultimately making a living, which is the case for one of our current facilitators who gave up his job just recently and has gone full-time into his gym, which is awesome. All because of counterparts, which is great. And he's already got schools and so forth that are coming to him to do counterparts. So that's the first criteria, not the first, they're not in any particular order, but obviously a passion for working with young people and, how would I put it? An aptitude for connecting with young people, somebody who already recognizes that there is a shortfall in the provision of what young people actually need and has that drive and passion to actually want to be able to deliver it. So ideally somebody who's already working with young people or has networks of young people or has the ability to have young people come and do it with them. And obviously, in order to do that, they need to have space as well, which is why up to now we've targeted gym owners and combat coaches and so forth, because, and even teachers as well, but people who have a facility, have the desire to like make a living from it, who are passionate about working with young people, and who have maybe some capacity for the physical components, which are easily taught and not awfully complex. But if you have a bit of a coaching background, then that's also, advantageous. If you're already self-employed, even better, because it's just something to add to your services, especially if you're like a combat coach or a gym owner, then you can maximize your quiet times in the gym and so forth. But it's very much like what we're looking for at the moment is a founding cohort. Like we have our original crew of 3 or 4 that we're just getting started, but we're looking for a foundation circle, a founding cohort, because what we're doing here is actually creating a movement. It's not a program. It's definitely not another program. It's definitely not another online program. This is something that I believe, as a psychologist and with all my sort of experience working with young people, this is something that has the capacity to literally change the way we view youth development. To look at the way youth programs are delivered, and the content and the idea of combining movement, getting out of the classroom a bit more, that sort of stuff is the future. Young people, the whole realization, the whole sort of idea of, kids are so open to the idea of like, oh, frequency, what's that? They want to know, like raising their frequency and just understanding how to regulate their emotions and basically have the identity, that they want to have is huge. And it's definitely the future. Like I couldn't believe that I spoke to a psychologist recently in Ireland who's very experienced, just actually created written a book about what he's defined as oh, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name now, but it's Brian Lennon, Lennon. If you search him on Amazon, you'll find his latest book. But he's just a really interesting guy. He's worked in guidance counseling and stuff like that for years and years and years. And when I sent him little extracts as I was doing the online program with Alan, who's my background guy, who's contributed as much to Counterpunch as anybody has, Brian was saying, like, nobody's actually ever, suggested that we combine movement in psychology practice. And I'm like, you kidding me? I genuinely did not believe it, because to me it's so obvious, but it's actually not been a thing. Like there's no therapeutic psychology programs that sort of say, right, the most important element of this program is to have movement involved. I mean, it's a normal guideline for health and things like that. Every doctor says, oh, you should get out, walk more, you should have more exercise. But actually, as a mainframe for the actual effectiveness of an intervention, it hasn't actually been created. So it's I think it has room to be, or has the potential to be huge, just in academic circles, not just, but for me, obviously it's more about the effect on the ground with kids. But I am presenting at an international workshop in October at the Glasgow conference, all about counterpunch and the progress we've made. But the biggest shortfall that took me a long time to sort of go, oh, I've got to do this, was to put the facilitator training online. And I'm excited to say that we've got that sort of in the process, and we got the first couple of modules ready to launch at the end of March, which will be when we'll be inviting applicants to become facilitators. The actual training with the kids will always be in person. That's so important for the Connect. That will never be online. That has to be in the presence and in the group, and that connection with the kids. But obviously, if we want this to be worldwide, then I can't be everywhere at once. So we need to put it online. This first cohort of foundational facilitators will be our future train the trainers. So you have the opportunity to get in right at the ground level of something that is only going to be bigger and bigger.
Amazing. And it definitely is the world's best kept secret right now. So I think once this gets out.
Yeah, and that's, I got to own that. Technology and me have never really been fans of each other, but, that's something I've had to do. And, I preach to the kids all the time about getting outside their comfort zone. So, I got to start leading by example. So here we are.
So well done on that. You're definitely doing that. Now I just looked up Brian Lennon. I'm not sure if I've got the right Brian Lennon, but he's got a book called
I think it's a book called Dyspraxia, Dyspraxia. It's only just been released. I think actually he mentions counterpunch in there somewhere, but it was actually, I first saw his presentation about that back in, oh my God, 11 years ago, 2015 at the Alice Springs conference. But definitely an interesting book, but he looks at a different approach to dealing with kids in the classroom.
Amazing. It looks like he's got quite a few books out there, actually.
Yeah, he's a pretty clever dude.
Yeah, it looks like there's one here called So You Can't Forgive Moving Towards Freedom. Another one called Programming Language Cultures, Automating Automation. If it's the same Brian Lennon. But anyway, yeah, look it up. That
doesn't sound like Brian, but maybe.
Different Brian. Maybe different Brian.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Dyspraxia is the name of the book. Anyway.
Okay, got you. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Love that. Yes, so the in-person is so important for connection. And I think we've really been missing that, particularly through COVID, where so much has been online. And, it's interesting because there are some people doing sort of yoga classes and doing, personal training through Zoom and things like that. Like, what are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
Oh, that's different. I mean, if you're working with adults, and a lot of adults are quite happy to have the opportunity to train in their front room, that's completely different. But what we're doing with the kids is that connection. So in order to actually connect, I think, effectively, we need to create that safe space and have that group and have that connection and be able to observe their interactions and things like that. Which, like when you mentioned about how unique counterpunch is, you know yourself when you're trying to do marketing and all that stuff, which is all a new adventure for me. But when you're trying to do all that, one of the first things they tell you to do is your research. And like, as you say, it's so unique. I really struggled to find any competition, but I did find like one, I think he was some kind of a pastor, I can't remember his name, in America, and he did a lot of it, but he was doing it online. And I'm like, you can't do it online. You can do, maybe counseling one-to-one, but you can do it. I guess you can do it, but you cannot do it to the same impact as you can when it's in person. I mean, obviously you can do it online because that's how I'm proposing to train facilitators, but I'd still recommend in-person training where possible. But I can't invite, I can't expect people even from other states in Australia, never mind internationally, to want to fly here to do it with me. But that's the opportunity. More than welcome. I'm always going to be providing live training as well, but we'll be providing lots of Zoom follow-up and working with all of our people that have already been doing the program. Like Damien's been doing it now for 5 years. So we know that it's replicable, that the curriculum works, and that, each individual facilitator can put their own individual stamp on it. It's not written in stone. But like we even have one, we have a training actually this weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend, we've got a facilitated training. So, we're doing them, but not as frequently as I'd like, and not to the numbers that I wanted. But I knew I had to spend time just making the online program happen, because when I went to America, I realized that, this needs to be online. I can't be doing this all the time. So,
Mm,
so yeah, so basically my aim is for me to not be the bottleneck of its expansion. Like, my aim is to train the trainers. So this cohort and maybe a few more, I'll be there firsthand and in person, and, you know, supervise, like supporting as much as I can, hands on. But as we expand, my expectation is to step back a little bit more, and have our the trainers take over and have regional hubs for counterpunch. That's the aim.
I love that. And it's great to have that online option. But I, totally agree. There's nothing quite like being in the same room, as opposed, we're talking about connecting, relating, and communicating. There's nothing quite like being in the same to
Yeah,
do
and I
that.
mean, it's not just my aversion to it, but it's more like I can see every day with the kids. They spend so much time online. They just love the fact that they, even the physical connection, the physical contact. When we play games and stuff like that, it's not quite the same doing that online.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. There's a great saying that says, people who play together stay together. And I think play is so essential in today's day and age. I think we have grown out of play for a lot of people as we've become older. And I think if you can, nurture and encourage more play at a young age, I think that's going to be incredibly useful also, later in life for a lot of these children that then become adults. And
100%. But how many kids are allowed to play?
well,
Everything is scheduled. Kids
mm,
kids aren't allowed to have any time on their own because I'm bored. Bored, being bored is a choice. Got to
yes,
encourage them to use their imagination. But nowadays, if I'm bored, they just go on their screens or whatever. I get that. But we
mm,
also just got to be aware to at least give them the opportunity to
mm,
be bored, because we schedule so much. Because as parents, unfortunately, you feel guilty, don't you? Because you're so busy and you just want to make sure they're getting everything they could possibly have. And you're all coming from a very heart centered place. But, sometimes kids need to be bored so they can understand and tap back into their imagination, that's their superpower. Like, your imagination is your superpower.
yes, absolutely, so important. Let's get some more play happening. So for facilitators then who are interested in finding out more about this, what's the best way they can go about that?
Look at I'd probably go with the Facebook page and inbox that. Only because we're currently updating the website, but you're more than welcome to go and check out the website as well. It's just counterpunch.com.au. But just bear in mind it's currently being updated. Yeah, the Facebook inbox on there, or you just email me, merc@counterpunch.com.au. My phone number is on the website as well. So, any of those, you can also get me on that phone number on WhatsApp. So yeah, heaps of ways to contact me. I'm very contactable, and I'll always get back to you.
And that's the beautiful thing, is that people have direct contact right now with you, the founder, to
Yes.
really
Yeah.
for people as all, foundation facilitators right now. This is such a great opportunity for people to come in on the ground floor with something that sounds extraordinary, on the multiple levels you work with people. It sounds like an incredibly powerful program. If I had children, I'd be sending them along to a counterpunch class, but I have chickens and cats, and I don't think it's quite the same.
But the thing is that's the reason we need more facilitators, Aldwyn, is because I've had inquiries from New South Wales, from America, from Ireland. I've had people asking me, UK, where can I find counterpunch? Where can I bring my kid to counterpunch? So the demand is there. Like, parents are crying out for this service, but I need facilitators. So if you're there, I need obviously the right facilitators, but we do need facilitators. And
Yes,
as Aldwyn said, as you said, it's definitely the right time to get in on the ground floor and potentially become a trainer and the head of regional hubs and things like that. That's kind of how I envisage it. But everything I've envisaged up to now, I just set the intention and the end result, and then the actual process and how it evolves isn't always as I foresee. But all I know is that the end result is going to happen. And I believe your audience is also in America. Is that right?
that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
worldwide.
So, hey, America, I want to open up in America too. So, get in touch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think America definitely needs some more play right now. They definitely
Yeah.
Yes, especially
Unfortunately,
what's going
yeah,
on
but
with
who are we to
pop.
judge? Like, I mean, don't talk politics.
Exactly.
uh, uh,
Yes, let's not go there. Let's not go there. But
yes,
anyway,
no
look,
problem.
we love our American friends, and definitely, I know Americans love their sport, so this is definitely a unique way to empower your youth and. And really do something very unique and empower them on multiple levels. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So yes, reach
It
out to.
literally, sorry, I was going to say, I was just saying, it literally does give kids tools for life. Like, literally, that's what it does, you know?
Tools for life. Absolutely brilliant. So there it is again. Go to facebook.com/counterpunch life or just counterpunch.com.au, or you can email Merc at MERC, that is at
Yeah.
counterpunch.com.au. So reach out to Merck there. And now I know you're a big goal setter. You've said you want to take this globally. What's your goals? How many facilitators would you like from Australia and globally, say, or new facilitators, ideally, to come on board, say, by the end of this year, 2026?
Well,
And what?
my founding cohort is, I've decided on 20, just purely because I want to over service those 20 people. So potentially 20 is a good number for me to start with. Obviously, I'd be looking at, maybe two cohorts this year. But
Mhm.
initially, I'm just focusing on that first group of 20 because I want the foundation training to be with me and to ultimately have those train the trainers. I guess initially our target will be English speaking countries, but
Mhm.
obviously I'd like to expand further in Australia. But we already have three people that are on the list here in Australia, so we're definitely expanding here, and that's without even putting it out there yet. But we're sort of currently just doing an organic campaign, and talking on shows like this. So um, because we don't really want to sell it. Like, it's a mission. It's obviously people make a living from it. Obviously there's a fee to become a licensee, but the numbers are, like, they speak for themselves. I mean, the fee is like probably 60% of what you take with one 70-minute group. So if we did jump on a call, the numbers make sense too, like 100%.
Love that. So reach out to Merck if you'd like to find out more about that, or if people want to, send their kids along to a class, if there's a class in their area as well, then is it also
Just in,
best?
at the moment, currently, the areas are like North Adelaide, Christie's Beach, Mount Barker, and in Dever Hills in Victoria. And yeah, those are the ones at the moment. But we also have North Victoria and WA coming online shortly as well.
Beautiful. So this will be growing. So
Yeah.
depending when you're tuning into this, whether you're watching live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, hello, hello. Let us know where are you joining us from and what you've thought of today's show, what you've learned today, and please share the love. That would be amazing. And connect with Merck on facebook.com/counterpunchlife or counterpunch.com.au to find out more about sending your kids along to some classes or about facilitator training and to come on board and make a bigger difference in your local community to taking on your region. I mean, what a great opportunity for people worldwide right now to take this on board. It's absolutely brilliant. And well done, Merck, on, it's
Thank
been
you very much.
years and
Thank
years
you.
of that you've put into this, and I can see that this is really going to take off, and people, once people really see the power of this, they're going to absolutely love it. So so well done with that. And so 20, you're really working with 20 people intensely. I think that's fantastic foundation.
Foundation circle.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
our foundation circle. Yeah. So myself, with the help of Damien and Jalen, will be looking after those 20 people.
Mm,
And that's why I'm not going to sort of say, oh, I want 100 people. I just want to make sure that I service those people 100%,
yeah,
and create our founding train the trainers. That's the
mm,
objective for this first circle.
mm.
Um, But yeah, I mean, that's why we're not like going crazy and looking to just get the numbers. We really want to get the quality, which is why it's an application process. It's not, it's more of you applying to see if you're suitable rather than us trying to sell something.
Yes, yes. So you can apply. Absolutely, yes. So reach out, and if there's an alignment, of course, after you have a conversation, there's lots of boxes need ticking here, right? You need to make sure that
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you've got the
I
right.
would say that ideally, we need people who are somewhat established and have their own space and already working to an extent with young people, ideally. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That's great. Great foundation there. Yes. So reach out if you've got questions about that or want to find out more. And there's lots of videos and things online too. People can get a good feel, have a good look around the website. There's lots of info on there as
Yeah,
well.
there's heaps and heaps of information there. As I said, it is being updated, but if you check all the drop downs, there's a lot of media stuff there. And even just looking at the Facebook page recently, we've been putting up some more reels that give you little snippets of what actually happens in the sessions, which are getting quite a lot of interaction, I think. And yeah, I mean, the stuff that the kids are sort of contributing is amazing. Like, it's something that you'll actually love doing it. Like, you'll be learning as much from delivering the program as the kids will be from you. That's for sure. It's very, very intrinsically satisfying. 100%. Yeah.
Yes, and great for your health, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, and of course,
Absolutely.
without your health, none of it matters, right? None of
That's
anything
right.
else matters.
That's right.
So,
That's right. It's absolutely. I
yes,
mean, you got to practice what you preach. I mean, you're teaching the kids morning routines and gratitude and all that kind of stuff and setting goals and being purposeful. But I think the interesting thing about the facilitator training is that we take you through that journey of becoming a facilitator. So you basically you practice and learn what the program is teaching the kids, and then you learn how to teach that to the kids. So it's very much a win-win kind of a deal.
yeah, I love that. Win-win. I'm all about win-win as well. Now they say, the why of why you do what you do is so important, right? Now, what is your wish and I guess hope and goals for the future as to the ripple effect that Counterpunch will have across the world? What is it that you really hope that people are going to benefit on a bigger scale?
Well, look at it. The ripple effect is pretty logical, really. Like, if we give kids, tools for life now, I mean, even from one, like, mental health perspective, like 75% of all mental health diagnoses occur during adolescence. So if we can give kids the tools to problem solve without resorting to those kind of drastic actions, then that alone, if we only prevent like reduce that number by a few percent. You mentioned currently the highest death in the world, like in Australia, is from suicide. It's the same in Ireland, my two favorite countries. So I'm very passionate about that. When I first created Counterpunch, first come up with the concept, I was based in the Northern Territory. At that point in time, the Northern Territory per capita was the highest rate of suicide in the world, jointly with Ireland.
Wow.
So it's something, and I mean, it's just more and more and more prevalent. So even from a prevention point of view, the difference we can make by having these hubs around the world is just phenomenal. But also just with the quality of life and service, and people being on purpose as opposed to being in the automated sort of subconscious, like, automation. Imagine the difference, like, the creative potential for people that are in creation rather than in fear. These kind of hubs all over the world is just going to be phenomenal. And it's going to happen. Like, it has to happen, but we just need people to sort of say, right, it's time for me to be a part of it.
Yes, be the change you wish to see in the world, as Gandhi says. So if you're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
yeah,
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Or he wasn't
yeah,
wrong. Yeah. Mm.
yeah. Yeah, so if you're not happy with the state of the world or the way that, and of course the youth are the future, if you're not happy, then here's your way you can be the change around that. That is absolutely brilliant. Now, in wrapping up, is there anything more you want to say about our topic today around the connect, relate, communicate, or empowering our youth? Any other sort of tips you can give people or ideas around that?
Yeah, look, I just think when we give the kids the opportunity to believe in themselves and actually understand that, life doesn't happen from the outside in, it happens from the inside out. Like most kids think that whatever happens, happens and it's just the way it is. The idea that literally you can decide how you want your day to be and actually set that intention and create that reality is a bit woo-woo to most victim ingrained adults, but for kids it's very, very it's just obvious to them. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, of course that's the case, especially when they start to practice the tools that get them there. One of the analogies I use is like, we do a lot of analogies around the Matrix and movies and things like that. And I often say, imagine like you're looking down at the earth and you're chatting the main man, whoever he may be. It could be God, or it could be the guy on the Matrix, or it could be, I don't know, it could be anything you want. You decide, and you're having a chat, and the guy is giving you your mission, right? So this is your mission, and these are going to be your guides, okay? And that's your parents, But there's one catch: when you come into the world on Earth, you're gonna have your memory wiped. So you've actually gotta figure out what it is the mission is as you progress, as you get, as you go through life. And once you figure it out, that's your purpose, and then you get to complete the mission. So you got to recognize that if you're doing something that's a pattern that's repeating, you got to ask yourself, well, what is the mission here? Like, what is it that I'm meant to be getting from this? Because everything that happens is going to be a clue. It's kind of like just an analogy for life and purpose, And it's kind of true.
Yes, well, everything happens for you, not to you, is one of my favorite sayings. And reminding myself,
like, nobody's born into the wrong family. Like everybody's born into whatever circumstances, what they're ready for and what they're meant to learn, and to get to the next level.
Yes, so true. So we're never the victim, right? We can, learn what we need to learn from whatever experiences are going on, and just get that everything's perfect, everything's in divine order, and up to us if we want to have an amazing life and be empowered and be, connected, related, and communicate well. If you want to be empowered through life, then, Counterpunch is a fantastic way you can do that. And everything else you're teaching, not just with the physical activity that happens in Counterpunch, but,
the physical activity is just a medium. It's just a tool to raise frequency and a medium to connect. But the content and the real value is in the discussions and the chats that we have. 100%.
Yeah, I love it. And it sounds like really it becomes like family over time.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to a reunion of Counterpunch graduates. Like I've been delivering this program now for 13 years. So
wow,
be kind of cool to have a graduation of all our ex-graduates and facilitators. We just get a few more facilitators on board first, and then we have an excuse for a party.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Well, that's extraordinary. A lot of businesses fold within the first 5 years. I think it's 80% fold in the first 5 years. And out of those that survive, 80% of those survive, don't survive in the next 5 years. So the fact that you've been in business for over 10 years doing this is extraordinary. And, be committed.
I've had a lot of excellent support around me. I'd have to give a shout out to my husband because I'm not sure I'd still be here if I didn't have his support. So, it's all about it's a village, not an individual.
Sure. And be committed, not attached is one of my favorite sayings. Be committed, not attached to what you want. And you've obviously been very committed to this cause for a long time, and you also do a hell of a lot of personal development, which I love about you too. And we actually know each other from personal development programs from yonks ago, from 10 years ago or so. And,
It was, Ben
you know,
Harvey, wasn't it? Authentic
yes,
Ed. Yeah.
yes, Ben Harvey, Authentic Education, and you keep investing in yourself all the time, and that's what I love too. You bring all of that knowledge that you've got from all these other courses and all these other mentors, and you're constantly learning and growing, evolving, and of course you bring that to your clients and to the
That's right, and that's why Counterpunch Online is now Counterpunch 2.0. It's like it's got so much more information. I mean, I'm excited for the training this weekend because we're adding so much to it. So I think that's my job really as the origin, if you like, is to constantly be adding to the content and making it better and better as I go. And the only way I can do that is to, get out there and learn more myself. And, it's one of my biggest passions anyway, is learning. So I'm always happy to do that.
Yes, and investing in yourself. I think that's so important. Investing financially.
Well, I think the lady I'm currently investing in is Alex Tripod. I'm about to go and do an intensive 4-day retreat with her, and I just did a 2-day one with her a few weeks ago, and it was so good. Like, her energy is amazing. But one of the things she said is, like, we're all talking about, like, in our sort of subconscious world, in our conditioned environment, we the be all and end all is to invest in a house or invest in a car. And we're quite happy to take out a loan for, I don't know, like, maybe $1 million, I don't know, to get a house. And we see that as an investment, yet we don't see 20 grand as an investment in our own learning, which is kind of a little bit of a paradox, really, isn't it, when you think about it?
Oh, absolutely. We put great fuel in our car, but then often into our bodies we put crap food. It's interesting. It's the same
thing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
100%.
With what we feed ourselves, with actual food, with our mental health, with everything, having great people around.
It's actually one of the things we cover in Counterpunch as well, for the kids, to teach them early on, is the importance of food and sleep. Because, as a psychologist, that's the first thing you check in with is, how's your sleep and, how's your diet? I mean, those are the two most controllable things that are there. So we get a handle on them first, then we can get to, the other stuff.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that. We've got one of our great followers here, Corinda Marley. Good to see you. Hello, Corinda. Corinda's got the Empowerment Extend show. We love your work there. And Corinda's asking, so what are you the founder at? We've been talking about Counterpunch. I know Corinda's just joined us. For those who've just joined us, we've been talking about an amazing program called Counterpunch. You can check it out at counterpunch.com.au, which I'll share up on the screen.
I'd almost call it a movement now, not a program.
The movement. Here it is here, or you can go to facebook.com/Counterpunch Life, and you will see more about Counterpunch, a phenomenal movement that is going global. So find out more, reach out to Merck around that. Do you have a favorite quote or motto you'd like to share with us today, Merck?
Well, actually, probably from my own most recent learning and from the workshop that I just mentioned, it comes from Alex Tripod, and basically says that we don't manifest what we want, we manifest what we're willing to become.
I love that. And Alex Tripod is extraordinary. She's got a fantastic energy herself and very inspiring lady. She is awesome. Amazing, Merck. Thank you so much for being on our show today. And my quote today is, well, I've actually got a few quotes because I love this whole concept of play. And this one is a George Bernard Shaw one. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Yeah, I know that one very well. Yeah, that's 100% true, isn't it?
Yes, I love that. And here's another one by Kenneth Ginsberg. It's play is essential to development because it contributes to the cognitive, physical, social, and emotional well-being of children. And we've been talking about youth, and from Counterpunch, you've been doing with kids from the age of 9 onwards, and adults can enjoy this as well. So It's been an extraordinary show. For those who want to connect with me, you can go to linktr.ee/Aldwyn if you want to be seen, heard, and known, and you want to amplify your impact. Then let's reach out. I have an opportunity for you to be in our next book, which is Fear to Freedom Series 2. Coming up, we can share your story of how you've transformed fear to freedom and the wisdom that you've learned on that journey. Also, we have a retreat coming up in April in Mudgeeraba from 10th to the 12th of April called Impact Change. It's going to be a conscious marketing retreat. It's going to be phenomenal. So reach out. And also we have a mass media mastery program and marketing packages that we do as well. So reach out if you would like to find out more about those things there. Any final words, Merck, before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I mean, life's there to be lived, not participated in.
Yes, get on the court. Don't stay in the in the crowd. You can either be watching life go by or wondering what happened, or you can be on the court playing, and that's where we want to be. We want to be playing life full out.
100%. Yeah, you only get one shot.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much for being our guest on Media Queen TV today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And thank you to those tuning in right now. This has been an extraordinary show. We've been talking about connect, relate, communicate, about empowering our youth. So important for the future of humanity. Check out Counterpunch Life on Facebook, or as in facebook.com/Counterpunch Life, or go to counterpunch.com.au if you want to find out more about that. Thanks once again. Have a beautiful day or night wherever you are in the world. Sending you all much love today, and looking forward to see Counterpunch go global. Watch this space. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.